Hi, everybody.
Look who's back.
Who was on the podcast last week?
Leader, me and Lo.
Oh, Lorne. Great. I have to go back and listen to it.
Really good conversation.
Oh, great. Yes, I've been away, but now I'm back and better.
Would you like to confess?
Confess? I have no confessions to make.
Where were you?
I was in Dallas when my brother got married. So I went
Congratulations.
to spend some time with my brother and enjoy, celebrate his wedding, you know.
You were definitely twerking at the wedding, huh?
Wait, what?
Huh?
No, we got two different jokes going on. No.
We're glad you're back. Glad you had fun.
He got married in a church at Watermark Church in Dallas, Texas. That's where he goes. It's a big church in Dallas. Cool. If you know, you know. And it was good. It was a nice wedding. It was fun. We had a good time. Saw family. You know, it was just a great time. But glad to be back, ready to roll. Friendsgiving around the corner.
Yeah. We still have. It's not around the corner till it's the week of, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
We got some fun stuff planned, some fun stuff to give away. And we really been praying. We've been praying and fasting that the Lord would change people's heart. You know, we mixing up some of our ministry strategy for Friendsgiving, mostly for the follow-up, right? So we're going to be doing a prayer series this year.
Oh, I'm like, what do we switch up?
Usually we do a relationship series afterwards, but we really just feel led like our people need to learn how to pray, you know, like learn how to talk to the Lord before they learn how to talk to somebody else who's going to potentially destroy their life. So,
it's a word.
So we'll still get to it, but we're just going to push it back later. But all that to say, I'm excited to be back. I'm excited for what God is doing and what God has in store for the future of our ministry. I just feel rejuvenated, revived, and just gassed up, ready to go.
Resting.
I know. It feels great.
Amazing.
It was nice. How was Sunday? You held down the fort. Shout out Bri holding down the fort and the leaders. It was great. So Pastor Trevor told me he really enjoyed coming. One of his astounding takeaways from being at the ministry was just the deep reverence for the Lord that filled the room with the worship team and even with the congregation and stuff like that. And so that was great to hear. So
we liked having him. He was great.
Yeah.
Very passionate.
Yes,
which I love a passionate preacher. I love a passionate pastor. But he did a good job, and he. I felt like he was encouraged. Like, I always like when guest people come in and they see like a bunch of young people, like kind of on fire for the Lord. I just think it's like refreshing for the kingdom to see the next generation. Running after
it
him.
fires him up too. He was just telling me how like it inspired him. Cause I was like, is there anything that you noticed that like maybe we can lock in on to improve as a ministry? And he was like, nah, I really just left feeling inspired, you know, by just
which is encouraging to us,
right?
Too. That's like, so let's keep going.
Yeah. So it's exciting. Good stuff. So what is some of the stuff that he talked about? I wasn't there, obviously. So, you know, you tell me. Now I heard that I heard from a few people. They did a really good job with the message. There's not the typical notes that we usually have. But I noticed that one thing he said is that we are to care about the people who don't know the Lord. And that's like it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. What about you? What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that think they know the Lord and don't. And so there are people recently, I've been recently burdened by people who are just completely lost, like unchurched, like never heard the gospel. And people that are in churches every Sunday have heard the gospel and still don't know the Lord. Okay,
so let me ask you this for the person who's listening, just for clarification. What does it look like to know the Lord? Because I think that if you talk about the deception that people have who are in church and they think they know the Lord, like that's a real thing, you know? But I think it's important if we're going to have that conversation to talk about like, what does it look like to actually know the Lord for the people who are in church and they are being deceived, shine some light on what that deception looks like.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is like a disciple of Jesus. So you care about his word, you read his word, you spend time with him, you are in community with other believers who are teaching you how to be more like Christ. Because some people just come to church, leave, never talk to anyone, never open their Bible. And I would question if they really know the Lord.
Right. So because to be a disciple means to become a student of Jesus.
Right.
And to follow his ways and to follow his teachings, like not just hear, but like do.
Yeah. And like live as if he's Lord.
What would you say is the root of that deception? Is it like a cultural thing? Is it like tradition? Is it this lack of desire to walk in obedience to Jesus? Is it all of the above?
I think it's all of it. I think it's I think it's a culture thing. I think especially in the South, we go to church on Sundays. Like it's tradition, what we do, right? Which is great. And that's like a great first step. But I also think some people possibly haven't seen someone that's like close to them run after the Lord. And so they just don't know that there's more, right? Like I was raised Catholic and my parents love the Lord, but I wasn't taught to read the Bible growing up, you know? And so there's some things that if you don't see, you don't know.
Sure.
And so I think there is a little bit of that going on too. It's a little bit of everything.
Sure.
Yeah. Or people think, oh, I listened to a good word. I got, fired up, inspired, encouraged. I prayed with someone and I'm good for the week.
I'm going to ask you this. What helped you take that next step from just, I guess, not being a disciple of Jesus to becoming a disciple of Jesus? Because I feel like it's something that's common for a lot of us, especially those of us who grew up in church like myself. Like we baptized a guy today who said that, man, I grew up in church and I just kind of realized that like I just was going to church, but I didn't have a relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay, you ready. Like you got it. You know, like you recognize that your need for a relationship with Jesus and not your need to participate at church. You know, like there's a difference there. And so what helped you take that step in your own faith walk?
Great question.
And it could be like a number
I
of things.
I think there's two things.
But
The first thing is I got to a really low place in my life and I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. I was a first year teacher. I don't think I've ever been depressed, but I was borderline because I had just left LSU, which was like my whole identity. And so I graduated from LSU, was no longer an LSU student, moved away from all my friends to just moved to Kenner, didn't know anybody. Teaching sucked. And I was like, this can't be my life. Like, there's got to be more to life than this. And I was like, okay, let me just give church a try. So I literally Googled churches near me, came to Celebration one Sunday, and I was like, oh,
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel good here. Like, let's keep going. And as I kept going, which I now know, like, I felt the Holy Spirit, and like,
you didn't have words for it at
right,
first, but
now.
But
I was like, I can't stop crying.
With some discipleship, you got words to.
But I was around people who they just were different.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever they have, I don't know what it is, but I'm drawn to it and I need more of it. And now I know it was the Spirit. So
really, it was like the leading of the Spirit, obviously, like him leading, prompting you, that given your life circumstances, but also like you got into community. So like people,
I mean, right away.
Yeah.
Like the second, like, okay, so I went to the BLOC one Sunday night. That next Sunday night, I was like, what do I need to do?
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because we started this conversation by talking about the people who are in church and think that they followers of Jesus. But like now we're talking about like getting into community. Like, what does it look like as a disciple for you to get into community? Like, is that different than just going to church? Because to them, they got friends at church, they go to church. And so to them, they in community. What does it look like to be in community as the Bible calls us to be in community? Would you be able to help them with that?
I'm just gonna open up this little thing.
Let it speak for itself. I
don't know why that did that.
Open up the scroll.
Okay, so this is what it looks like to be in biblical community. Okay,
you gonna Acts 2?
No, I had to write on Spirit Airlines, so but that is a significant ticket. Okay, so this is what it means. Okay, you ready? Acts 2:42.
I'm already knowing. Let's go.
Okay. They, meaning the church, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, which we get on Sunday.
So if you're in community, you're devoting yourself to the apostles' teaching.
Devoting.
Let's stop right there.
Yes.
What does it look like to be in community, devoting yourself to the apostles' teaching?
So devoted means continuously, right? So you are like choosing consistently.
It's a discipline.
Yes. To do it, no matter how you feel, no matter what you got going on in your life,
committed.
I am devoted. No matter what's happening in my life, I'm going to do these things.
Okay.
The apostles' teaching is one. Fellowship, which some people think that just fellowship is community, which is a part of it, but just hanging out is not enough.
Right. So you need to be fellowshipping and devoted to the apostles' teaching.
And breaking bread.
So we're going to eat
together.
Big Back Ministries. I think we got that covered here at the BLOC. Okay.
Breaking bread. And to prayer.
Yes.
And to prayer.
Yes.
And everyone, the they refers to all of them. So everyone there is devoted to all of these things.
Right.
I'm devoted to fellowship.
Right.
I'm devoted to prayer. I'm devoted to breaking bread with my people and being taught the word of God.
Because that's what disciples or students of Jesus do. That's what they do. They follow Jesus.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that's good. I think another element to being in really being in community is letting people in, right? So like if you're at church and you're around the community, because like you can be devoted to the Apostles' teaching because you're showing up to worship. You can
the Bible study or
the Bible study, all these things. But you can be unknown by the community, which means nobody's holding you accountable. Nobody's able to encourage you. Nobody's able to challenge you, to discipline you, to do what the body has been functioned and set up to do. That the Lord can use the people that are around you to encourage you, to challenge you, to discipline you, to do all the things that help you grow as the Spirit intends for you to grow, right? So like if you're doing these things, but like you're not known, then you're not in community. You just around community. Does that make sense? And I think, because I think if you pay attention to, as you continue to read, it says that the early church was doing these things, but they was also like selling their land and their houses so that everybody in the church would be lacking nothing, which tells me what? That tells me people in the church was saying, hey, I need some help. Right. Okay, financially,
and
not just
like,
spiritually.
All right, we got you.
And
boom.
like we gonna make it happen. We gonna make it work, right? So that means that you have to be known to receive, and it's not just the financial things. It's more importantly the spiritual things, and both of these things work together. But like if you're not willing to expose your brokenness to the body in a safe and healthy environment, which the church should be, not perfect, but should be. You know, you got to find your people. Then you're not doing community the way the scriptures call us to do community. Right. And I think the reason why this conversation is so important is because it's often the missing link for people. You know, like people go as far as they thought they were supposed to go, and then it's like, oh, it didn't work for me, or I tried it, or I got to go find something else to do. It's like, no, you need to be trained to do church the right way, to devote to fellowship, to devote to community, to devote to the apostles' teaching.
And even if not everyone is, you can.
Yes.
Right? So like, obviously in the Acts 2 church, they all believed, and people like heard the word, repented, and they got added to their number, added to their number daily, and then they all like believed together, which is not always the case in our local churches, because there are people that come that don't believe, and like that's exactly why they should be coming.
Yeah,
you know?
But the same is true for the early church as well.
Yeah.
Like there were people who were committed to the church and committed to the community who like stayed after they believed. But the reason why they came to believe because they came to church and they heard the apostles' teaching and then they believed. Right. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so you can
even if you feel like you're the only one, like I'm praying, I'm devoted to fellowship, I'm breaking bread, like you still devote to it.
Yes.
And like whoever is there with you, y'all devote together.
Right.
And wait for, prayerfully, the Lord will add to that.
Exactly.
But I think also something that I feel like needs to be said. Like they went house to house, it says in Acts chapter 2. And I feel like if you are with someone every day, y'all are believing, y'all are devoted to the same things, and you're going house to house, y'all are going, like you can't hide from that much proximity. You know, like you can only masquerade yourself so much. Every single day, praying, breaking bread, listening to the apostles' teaching. There comes a point where you have, like, you can't hide that anymore.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I would just say it different. I say there comes a point where you have a decision to make. Either you're going to show your cards or you're going to walk away.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Because you're at some point, like, as you're saying, you're going to get to a point where you realize, okay, I'm walking too close to these people to either they're going to find me out or I'm going to retreat so I don't get found out. And the reason why I say that is because we see it in our ministry today. Like when people are struggling or they kind of backsliding, they have a decision to make. Either you're going to lean into the community and like show your cards, man, look, I'm struggling and I need help. And I heard it's okay to not be okay. And I'm just telling you, financially, I'm not okay. Right. Spiritually, I'm not okay. Physically, I'm not okay. And it's affecting every area of my life. And so either you make that confession to the people who love you and care enough about you to fight for you in prayer and do the tangible things that they can do to help you, or you say, you know what, I'm just going to walk away and go do things with people who don't really care about my personal life. We just in it for a good time. Does that make sense? Because I think that what you're saying is true. I just think that because it's true, people either lean into it or they walk away from it. Yeah. And what we're encouraging you to do and what the scriptures encourages you to do, lean into it. Because no matter how glamorous we make church look, no matter how beautiful we make ourselves look when we come into church, we are all broken in need of Jesus when we come to church. Like, that's the reality of it. And I think that's an area that the church, including myself, could do a better job of. Like, let's stop trying to perfect ourselves when we get in here, and let's just like go before the one who perfects us and say, like, look, I know I'm the pastor, but like I need Jesus just as much as you do. So like, let's go together and just like plead for mercy and grace that he promises that we'll have when we need it, you know? And so I just think that all of those things are important. So, all right, well, let's care about those people. Well, let me ask you this, because you went to a conference this week, the Acts 242 conference, right? Which is why you got all this energy around Acts 242. You already knew what to say. So like, that was a powerful experience, right? 7,000 young adults people from around the country came to this conference to hear what it means to be a disciple. So what did you learn at that conference that our listeners could benefit from? I know you learned a lot. Pick a couple things. Let's start at one place.
Okay, my biggest burden is, like, obviously I love conferences.
Sure.
And I think everyone should go learn from people who know more than you, who've been in ministry longer than you, who are in seasons that you want to be in. Like,
big advocate.
It's helpful. Yes. It's helpful. And there is a certain energy where there's 7,000 people worshiping together. Like, that's going to feel different. Right. And it should. And that's great.
Yeah.
However, if the only time you feel God moving that powerfully is at a conference, our churches are in trouble. So literally the whole plane ride home, I was like, that's why I've been sitting in Acts for like, I don't know however many days I've been back. Cause I'm like, how? Like, how do we bring that here every Sunday at the BLOC, every Wednesday at Bible study, every week at Life Group? Like, you know, how do we do that? So that's been my biggest burden, is that people feel like the only time they can experience and have this expectancy for God to move is to leave their local church. Like, that makes me sad.
So how would you challenge that person? Like, what would be the alternative solution, or like the help to get us to take the same approach that we have to these conferences and bring them to our local gatherings of believers that we call church on Sunday morning?
Well, we got to pray.
Okay.
We got to pray.
Okay.
Expound
on that. Like, what do you mean? Yeah.
Simple and easy. It's easy to do and also easy not to do.
Yes.
But we have to pray for a move of God on what feels like a random Sunday. Yeah. You know? And like, pray together. Like, not just, I mean, yes, pray by yourself, but like continually praying together. So, cause that's what they do for these conferences. They pray and fast together. Sure. You know, the speakers, the leaders, the worship team, they had a prayer team that was like calling down heaven. I mean, people were like, demons were getting cast out. There were people acting like snakes in the prayer room. Like, it was a move of God. Yeah. But they had an expectancy. They prayed, they fasted, and we can do that. Yeah. For our Sunday services, or for our Bible studies, or for our life groups. Like, it doesn't have to be this big thing for us to fall on our face and plead for the Lord to do something in our ministries. And like, it's just necessary.
You know what can I get my take?
Sure.
I think one layer of it is expectancy. Like, we're going to this conference, it's going to be 7,000 people. And like, I believe the Lord's going to move because there's going to be so many people there. And so like, there's a heightened level of expectation. You getting yourself together, you praying, you ready, and you buying journals and whatever the case may be. And like, to get yourself ready for that moment, because you know, if 7,000 people are going to be worshiping together, Jesus is definitely going to be there. And I want to make sure Jesus do whatever he want to do in my heart in that moment, because he's going to be there.
And the travel is a part of that too. You know, it's like, I ain't traveling for nothing.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's all
all
gonna
those
be worth
things,
it.
right.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's like a moment. Like, we're going to have a moment this weekend with 7,000 people, and it's going to be great. Yeah. Local church. No, we're going to meet every Sunday with the same people, give or take a few more people who come visit or whatever the case may be. And I think that the local church rhythm is a discipline and a devotion, like we talked about in Acts chapter 2. So you have to be disciplined enough to ready yourself with the same level of expectation that you had last Sunday, this Sunday. If you only got to do it once a year when the Perrys are throwing a conference, You okay, cool. You just gather yourself up. Or maybe you go to another conference. Maybe you hit 2 a year and like, that's 2 moments a year. 2 moments a year ain't gonna cut it for nobody. I don't care what conference you go to. They met regularly. Daily, even the Bible says, like house to house. When the synagogue was open, the temple was open. They was there. They was, they was devoted. Right. The big word there is devotion, and I think that we must examine our devotion to the Lord on a daily and weekly basis, and what it looks like to follow Jesus. Because I think that when you do, now you start to prepare yourself. I always had this thing where at some point, instead of like, it's always great to go to church for Jesus. Like, that's great. But like, there's also a sense in which like you get to bring Jesus to church. Like, you should bring in energy. You should bring an expectation. You should bring I got a word today that I'm not preaching today, but I can't wait to share with my brother and sister that I ain't seen all week, what God has put into my heart this week. I mean, or like, man, I came to church, I was down and out, but like the word spoke to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do those things, but it's a discipline. It's a devotion. And it's not always as exciting and as glaring as like it would be at a conference, but it is those disciplines, those deposits of that we make into our spiritual life that add up and amount to something. That's what helps you grow and to be a great student of.
But it's also, I feel like it could be more rewarding because I ain't never gonna see them people again. Yeah, like them 6,999 people. Like, I mean, I might see. I can't tell you one person besides the 2 people I went with. So I'm not going to see them again. Right. But when I come to the BLOC, I'm praying and fasting for my friends. Right. I'm praying and fasting for our leaders. I'm praying and fasting. Like, I'm going to see you Tuesday and I'm going to ask you about the thing I've been praying about all week for you. So it's like almost more exciting because it's like you get to see the fruit of how the Lord is moving through you, with you, among, us as a community. And so, the conference is great. And like, I'm so glad I went because now I'm like, oh, let's do X, Y, and Z. Let's get after it. Right. So that everyone can experience what I experienced on a Sunday night, which a normal Sunday night, right? But it's like, it's not normal if the Lord's moving. Like, it's miraculous. Right. And so we need to treat it as such. Right.
Because the same God you met at the conference is the same God.
Same spirit moving. Right. Like, worshiping the same person.
That's my thing. It's like, for me, it's an attitude. Like, it's like, if you want God, you don't even care who come to church on Sunday morning. You gonna be in there. You gonna be on your knees and on your face before God, begging Him to do something in your heart. Right. And you're going to do it because you didn't even wait for the doors of the church to open, because you knew you could meet God even at your house if you're the only person in your room. But if you're going to be worshiping with the saints, it's gonna be different. You know what I'm saying? Because like you with the saints, and like there's a different
by myself all week, and now it's time to come together.
It's almost like it's like you go to church to get filled up. Like the conferences are great, but they're like the Buc-ee's of gas stations. Like when you go to Buc-ee's, it's an experience. It's like it's a gas station like everybody. You'll get the same gas at Buc-ee's as you're gonna get down at the 7-Eleven. You know what I'm saying? At the Shell. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, if you only relying on you getting the Buc-ee's, you're never going to get there. Like you got to go down the street and go to the discount zone to fill up when you run out of gas. And you following me here? I'm trying to work this thing.
I got you.
And so I just think that like we need to find a rhythm to our walk with the Lord and prioritize Him on a daily basis and get in community and make everything else in our life center around our commitment to following Jesus. Yes. So like the first, your relationship that you prioritize first is the people within the household of faith, because those are the people you need on a daily basis, right? And then there's the people of the lost that God has called you to reach at the same time. Right? You fellowship with other people, you break bread with other people, all those great, but like all those things center around the household of faith and the people thereof, because you need those people, and even more so, those people need you. Yeah. And I think that's the element that we can't forget.
I think people also think, and maybe it's tradition, maybe it's culture, I don't really know, but people think, because I kind of used to think this too, that the revelation that the pastor gets is exclusive to the pastor. Because if they're the pastor, then they have this higher calling.
They sitting on the side of God to get that word.
Which they have different giftings, which is why they're in that position. But you can get the same revelation in your room at 5 a.m.
We
as the pastor Like, it's the same thing.
We study in the same Bible.
Right.
With the same spirit.
Yeah.
Now, he giving me a different word because my word is for the masses.
Right.
He giving you a word for you or maybe the people that's in your circle that God is calling you to reach.
But people think, oh, like, I just need to come and sit and listen to the pastor, which, yes.
Yes, sure.
And also,
yes,
you can be taught too by the scriptures, and you should be.
Right.
And that's
they devote themselves to the apostles' teaching, but the apostles also taught that you should be a teacher. You know, like Jesus said that you should be a disciple and you go make disciples, right? And so, like, again, this goes back to like your devotion to the Lord, understanding that like you're not supposed to be a hearer. You're supposed to be a doer. Like, again, these people are showing up to the apostles' teaching, and by the time they left, they trying to figure out who they going to sell their house to so they can give money to Billy Bob Joe that's sitting on the side of them because they in need, you know? Yeah. And the Lord is not just concerned with your spiritual needs and saying, I'm going to pray for you, but like your tangible needs as well. And this is the benefit of the local church, you know?
Yeah.
And this is why I tell people, can I get on my soapbox real quick?
Absolutely.
If you're going to run a ministry, no matter what it is, do yourself a favor and connect it to the local church. Because the only institution that has stood the test of time, the only ministry that has stood the test of time is the ministry of the local church. You want to know why? Because before God take care of anything else, He's going to make sure He take care of His bride. That is the body of Christ. And the gates of hell will not prevail against it, right? And so this is my encouragement to you. Like, because I've known some great ministries in our city, outside of our cities, that have been phenomenal. Conferences, all these things. But if these things are not glued to the local church, you're not under the covering that you need to be under.
Yeah.
But you get under the covering that breeds longevity for your ministry and the people that your ministry is reaching if you're doing it under the umbrella of the local church and you're pushing people to the local church. Like Next Gen, we've had Cynthia on here before. The reason I love them so much is because they do ministry in the schools, but like they partner to do everything with the local church because they don't want the kids to just come to the clubs during the week.
Right.
They want the kids to go to the local church because the local church is going to outlast them. That's why they blessed.
Yeah.
That's why.
And I've seen people on like Instagram and Threads, like, but you know, like who wants to share notes and like notes from the conference and who wants to, you know, like do these virtual Bible studies. And I'm like, you're missing it.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to talk to the people that were there.
Yes.
We all got it.
Yeah.
We need to go. And like the people who weren't able to come for whatever reason, they need to be infiltrated with the experience we had. We don't need to just talk to each other.
We need to
That's
go
selfish. Out. You know, like
that's missing the point.
Go home. Go next door to your local church and share what you've learned.
Yeah. So all of that being said, we're going to push our relationship series back.
Yes.
Because we want to teach you how to pray. So you can know how to follow Jesus and you can know how to rely on the Spirit when you are reading your word, and you can be led by the Spirit in prayer to get into community and, you know, like tap into the things that are in heavenly places, that His kingdom on earth, the kingdom in heaven will come on earth as it is in heaven. So all good things. I'm excited about it. Excited about what God's doing. Excited about Friendsgiving. Yeah. God is doing something great. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Encourage you to lean in.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
We love y'all.
See y'all Sunday.
See you.